American Pie and their 50th anniversary tour is actually going to kick off right here in Brattleboro at the Latches Theater, and that's going to be on April 23rd on Saturday. I am so glad to be able to welcome Don McLean to the show this morning. Good morning, Don.
Well, thank you for having me. I just want to let folks know that I have been a resident of Maine for the last 30 years, so I love New England and I love the winter. But I'm also out here in California in the desert, so I like the summer and the hot weather too. So I'm trying to have the world on a string, which is how I have it.
And you know, Don, it's so funny because you're in, and I can't remember the name of the town, but it's my aunt actually lived there. Camden, right?
Camden, Maine, and I also have a beautiful home in Castine, Maine, which is near the Maine Maritime Academy.
Yeah, fantastic. Are you somebody? Why Maine? Why do you love Maine so much? Are you somebody who gravitates towards the to the forest and the nature and the trees and stuff, or is it the ocean or all that stuff?
All that.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I'll tell you the story. I'm an architect lover. I love architecture, and I was moving into, I would say, the second phase of my architectural life, which was the Gilded Age phase with colonial architecture and Gothic revival architecture. And I had a friend who had a place in the area near Castine, and he said that you should come and visit this because they have the most beautiful homes in New England. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with the place and bought a house on Main Street. And then I began renovating it while I was living still in New York. And so it was the architecture, really, that brought me there. And then I found so much more when I got there. And one of the things I found was that there were a lot of Army and Navy brass, old-time brass, who had retired there. There was a lot of CIA there, too. You know, they were far away from everything, so they were looking out for the country. And I met some of these people, and they became the best friends I ever had. I loved them so much. And I learned to respect military families, which I had not really learned because I was against the war in Vietnam, know, and all that. And so here I was later in my life meeting these people, how dedicated they were and what great people they were. So it was architecture that really, and then I had two children, and I would go back and forth between New York and Maine. And after I had my son around 1992, I began to see that the kids who lived next door to me, and I'd seen them grow up, had started to get into drugs. And I told my then wife, I said, I want to raise these children in Maine because we're going to keep them away from this garbage.
Yeah. Is that one of the reasons why, is that moment one of the reasons why the Don McLean Foundation exists?
Oh, well, I still am a resident of Maine.
Yeah.
But that's why I went there in the first place, was to get my children away from drugs. And neither of my children have ever been in any rehab or any of this stuff. There's no drug addiction or alcoholism or anything else. I managed to do that for them, and
that's amazing.
Worth it. And I fell in love with the place. I bought a big estate in Camden, Maine. I spent the next 20 years fixing it up because I just love to do that.
It seems like, because you're a creative person, obviously, you're creative with words, creative with lyrics. It really struck me when you were talking about the architecture. Do you think that creative people can see things a little bit differently? Like you're talking about the architecture so passionately, and that's kind of a creative thing to notice, I feel like. Do you think that just creative people are kind of they have all the tools they need to be good lyricists too?
Well, I got a chance to. We were reading a lot about Johnny Depp. You know, he got into that very stupid lawsuit with his ex-wife in England, which he never should have gotten involved with.
Right.
But I got a chance to see some of the properties that he has. He's got 10 properties, and he does them over. He's got like a series of apartments in Los Angeles and one big French a village that he owns. And let me tell you, this guy knows what he's doing. I mean, I've seen the decoration he's done, and it's absolutely beautiful. And he really his attention to detail. That's a whole other area of him that nobody mentions. Well, that's an area of me that probably nobody knows about.
Sure.
I love to decorate rooms and I love antique furniture and crystal and silver and oriental rugs and all that stuff. It's a whole world of beauty and excellence. And I think more and more today, young people don't care at all about that. They care about their computer and information and social networking, and I think they could live in a trailer and be perfectly happy.
Yeah, and it's such a big dynamic too, and that's part of the reason why American Pie, I think, has become such an iconic song too, because it really does transition through the generations really, really well. And tell us a little bit about that song. Take us back to 1970. And, you just went through, you were kind of brought up in the 50s, seeing that sort of kind of lifestyle, and then the turbulent 60s. You get through it, and then American Pie is a song you wrote about an experience you had like 20 years prior to that. What was the dynamics at that period, that time to hit
10,
you?
10 years prior.
10 years prior. 10 years prior.
Well, I was on my own little odyssey throughout the 1960s as I was trying to work my way into deeper areas of show business.
Yeah.
And it's a long story. I won't go into it, but there's going to be a movie called The Day the Music Died, The Making of Don McLean's American Pie, and that is coming out in about 3 months. You're going to see that on Paramount Plus, on that platform, and it's been a movie they paid a lot of money to make, and it's going to tell the story of what the lyrics mean, but also how it was created. And one thing I want to say is that in 1970 and 71, America was much more disrupted than even in the 1960s. Because the war had not ended, and we still had Nixon, and now we had Watergate on top of that.
Right.
So it was a big mess, let me tell you. And that's the environment that the song came out of.
It seems like the song came out of like the need to just retool your brain after all that stress and stuff that's going on in everyone's life at that time. And then this song gets poured out of you, and it really was a song that I think was needed at the time. It's just a minute to chill and remember. And boy, it just used to be a lot different back then. A lot just, chiller. It seemed like a little less of the stress attitude. And I think that's what the song kind of talks about in depth a little bit.
Well, I knew my audience.
Yeah.
For several years, I had been an opening act to groups like the James Gang and Steppenwolf and people like that. I was in front of young people and rock and roll audiences and big crowds, and most of the time they wanted to kill me because they wanted to get to the main act.
Sure, right.
But I would learn how to turn their energy back on them. So that turned me into a good stage performer. And but I would say that that everybody in those days, all the artists around, and there were a lot of other artists, there were very good ones. We all knew who our audience was. We knew what they wanted.
Right.
And so, I knew what my audience wanted, and I had already come out with Tapestry, which had, Tapestry itself is an environmental song.
Right.
And then there were a lot of other songs like Orphans of Wealth about poverty. There was, of course, Castles in the Air and And I Love You So, which became standards for me. But there were a lot of other songs, Grease Lights Up, songs that were experimental in nature that I was working on. And so the audience, but I knew that the audience did like that album. It sold a lot of records,
sure.
And I was on the radio all the time, FM radio. So that laid the groundwork for the next one. But, I really understood that audience. Why? Because I came from them.
Exactly. Right.
I came from them. I came from the high school and college and the city in New York and in Westchester County where I came from there. Right. So now I couldn't tell you what this audience was.
It's confusing for sure.
It's not a put down.
Right.
It's not a put down. They want what they want. They come from a different place. They've been affected by rap music. They've been affected by a lot of other negative ideas. They've been affected and infected by these kinds of things, and they've co-opted all this and adopted it and made it part of, and also the idea of big. What's the word?
Changes on the horizon and things like that.
No, I'm talking about big shows, where everything is with screens.
Oh yeah, like those big stadium tours. Yeah, like the big stadium tours.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really, it owes more to Liberace than anything.
That's right. Yeah, the glam stuff. Yeah.
Every time I see one of these things, Liberace did it better.
And that's right. Well, that's why, that's why songs like American Pie last for 50 years. 50th anniversary, and the tour is crazy. Mostly around New England, which is fantastic, Don. With American Pie, I got to tell you, Vincent, we haven't even talked about Vincent yet. And I got a quick little story. One of the first times I ever heard that song, I was at a rock station, and somebody's uncle just passed away, and the guy's name happened to be Vincent. So we played that song, and and obviously, if you know the song, if you know the lyrics, it kind of didn't fit other than it was the guy's name. But I mention that because it's amazing how over time songs have different meaning for people over time. And I think when you've got a song like American Pie or Vincent, I was speaking of Vincent earlier, but American Pie in particular, when you look at this, number 5 in a poll of 365 songs of the century, you're right up there with Over the Rainbow, White Christmas, and This Land Is Your Land. As a regular guy, and that's who you are. You seem like a regular, down-to-earth, regular guy. That must make you feel incredibly full of pride to be part of an American history like that.
Well, I am a regular guy, but I'm irregular in some ways, and
we all are, hopefully.
One of those ways was that I always knew that I was as good or better than anybody that ever was. I had very, 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 very great confidence in myself, and that I could do this. And I knew I could sing better than those guys, and I could write better songs than other people if I put my mind to it, and I did. And I worked very hard, and I had a very high standard. I never repeated myself. And sure enough, things happen. I'm very careful with the use of language.
Right.
I don't use words that are going to be dated, like old technology that ends up in movies.
Really smart. Yes. Really smart.
That's how I am. And then I had this business sense, which I learned about from going to college and getting a degree in this stuff. And so I protected myself in a lot of ways, business-wise. If you look at the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, they all lost a lot of money to Alan B. Klein. And it's a very interesting story because the Rolling Stones do not own any of the publishing or the masters from anything before 1970.
Right. Yes.
Now, that's a gigantic billion-dollar blunder right there.
All right. And didn't the Beatles run into the same kind of situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was the same people that did it.
Yeah. Oh, geez, it figures.
The Alan B. Klein owns, or at least managed to get, Northern Songs, which was the publishing company that the Beatles were talked into going public with. And that's how they ended up with Sony. And then Michael Jackson went along and for $50 million, 20 or 30 years ago, bought $1 billion recording contract.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney could have done that, but I think at that time his net worth was such, maybe $100 million or something. He didn't want to spend $40 million to buy back his own songs, but he should have.
Well, doesn't that, as an artist and as a songwriter, does that feel little insulting? It must feel incredibly insulting, actually, to sit there and think that you have to buy songs back that you wrote. And I know it's a business thing. I know it's all business. But
I know. I can understand why he didn't do it, but now he can't understand why he didn't do it, you know?
Right. It's a principle thing.
I can, but he can't, you know, but you have to be aware of this. We're in something called show business.
Yeah, there you go. And the business of a show is to tour. And we're going to have a great time with Don McLean at Brattleboro at the Latches Theater. And it's coming right up, actually. It's going to be here before you know it. You're kicking off the tour on the 23rd.
I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to sing for the folks. I really can't.
Have you been to the Latches Theater before, Don?
I've been around so long, I probably have.
You're going to love this theater. This is going to be you're going to love this theater, the architecture. You want to talk about architecture. You're just going to love Latches, old school stuff.
Wonderful.
Thanks again, Don, for being on the show. And when you're in Brattleboro, you're more than welcome to pop over to the radio station, hang out with us. I'll let you co-pilot the morning show with me.
All right. Well, thank you for that invitation.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. We could have some fun. Everybody, Don McLean from American Pie, of course, and he's got his the show coming up on the 23rd of April at the Latches Theater, latches.com for tickets, or, of course, you can go to Don's website as well. Thanks so much for being on the show.